I want to show, of course, these are leather ones. Why? Because they are already ready, they are already sold. That is, signs, seals are embedded here, signs and seals are already there. Let's say, who ordered what? Someone ordered a marriage, someone ordered the preservation of the family, someone ordered an increase in business.
And this, as if specially commissioned.
It's skin. Here. And this is what we are doing here completely. Here.
And how does it work?
Here a special prayer is given, so to speak. Let it be some kind of psychological setup, here, but she herself already radiates automatically. We give a sprinkler, so I buy there, let's say, sprinklers, we spray it. She, for example, has office fragments like this. That is, to expand your business, to raise your output there, let's say, to increase your output. You sprayed it and sprayed your office, for example. And you pointed out to this picture, let's say, this is my field of activity. That's what you expand. And the man.
It is necessary for him to do something there, I don't know, in some of a certain period, or with some certain cyclicity, let's say, to make it work, so that
it is being done for almost a month only. This is more.
The person himself or you.
It's me doing her, just her month. Here we invest a little more, because there is a greater volume of information. But here it is exactly home, over the bed, to the family. She says, I have.
What is it aimed at?
It's more of a family thing. She says, I'm doing fine. The only thing is, save my family, my children. As if it were so that everything was, as they say, normal. Here. But they are also different. Here.
And how long does this last?
The work of the work goes on, it is transmitted from generation to generation. The older it is, the more it will work. Here. The oils are the same. Everything is imported. It's all from Egypt. There is no such thing here. The powders that I used there, for example, are now being packed in boxes. In other words, we make large stocks for the winter. We stock up so well that we have enough for so long. And then, you know how he is, please, you need bare claws if he rubbed. Please, everyone. Fresh. Magic does not tolerate artificiality. Magic loves nature, that is.
It would be interesting to know, a person who chooses the path of magic, how does it end for him? What does he choose for? Well, he's going into magic for some purpose. Exactly in your case, what was your goal when you performed?
I had a goal, you know, I honestly thought that with the help of such resources, and with the help of such power, I would become an oligarch in my life. That is, for me, the goal was material saturation. What was needed for a boy in his 14 or 15 years? What did the boy need when he was 18? Wealth, money. Somewhere. I took on projects, for such work, cool businesses. Well, there are few people there now, where I am kind of known among ordinary people in Ukraine, in Uzbekistan. Russia seems to know me well. That's why I want to leave for the common man. And I want to say that it's not true that we do everything for money. We still have both the materials and the original ones. We can do almost anything for free. I'm just saying that because of dozens of such fools, you know, those who can suffer.
But it's also interesting, Can a magician refuse? So well, he went for some period of his life, was engaged in magic, and suddenly he wants to give up.
No.
Can Mac?
If you have.
There is no such way.
Exceptional, you can't even refuse the amulet you ordered. Let's say there is a spirit living in this amulet. I have no power over it anymore. And if you want to get rid of this thing, you have to explain to him why you are. It's like from your child. So I took the child from the orphanage. And now explain to him, when you take him back to the orphanage, why do you take him away? That's the same with amulets. And also in our lives. I have to explain, but I won't explain to the Creator. Let's say I'm sorry, I don't want to do this. In other words, this is my destiny. Magic is witchcraft, it's scary. Someone's out there. Oh, let's not guess. I say, well, then let's predict. What's the difference? I say, well, fortune-telling is like a gypsy. What she said came true. And a prediction is something that you can still change, as if in your life. Oh yes, let's predict. Well, again, you take the same cards, you start making the layout, and you start giving people predictions. It already turns out in fact. From the side of the observing person, that is, you are guessing. Magic, that is, where magic is. Here is magic, there is magic, this one owns, this one owns. That one is given, that one is given. In other words, God has not deprived anyone of anything from the very beginning. Well, in my case, let's say it was activated somewhere even in 3, 4 years. That is, initially, how would I see it? Here. Yes.
Were you aware?
I didn't realize that this was a non-existent person. That is, perhaps I understood at that time that it could be my mother's guests came there or something else. Well, that is, I understood that. Well, there is a bucket there. It turns out that the mother has already told me about it. She says, I took off the bucket, we didn't have hot water. She says I heated the water specifically to bathe you. And then he says, I took off the bucket, he says, and I look, he says you're going straight to this bucket right through here. And just numb, he says, in a split second like this, he says, and you reach the bucket, and literally, he says, you lift your head up, pull your hand, as if someone took your hand, he says, and someone says aside and took it away.
Candy, do you remember what's happening to you?
But no, at that time, of course, I don't remember anything. I already remember the moment of my mother's fear, that she gathered me together quickly enough, brought me to my grandmother. She says, Mom, do with him what you want to say, because she says, I can't do this, she says she can't stand talking anymore. I mean, but what did she ask her? What fragments could she not stand? She says, even at such moments, she says, thought that, she says, he is blind. She says, why? Is he blind, he says. Well, he says, well, can you imagine, he says, go up to the arena, he says, I pull my hands to him, he says. And he says, goes past me somewhere, he says, he pulls his hands, he plays with someone, he says. Or took him in his arms, he says, and he says, he keeps waving his hands there. Why should he be waving with someone somewhere, he says. She says, and the mother was a psychiatrist herself, but you also understand, that is, her reaction, my behavior. That is, something is wrong with the child, or it is a child's visual hallucination. Here. But she says, well, where the visual one is, there will already be talking, and the auditory hallucination is talking. Therefore, she says, do with him in your own way whatever you want. Grandma has already dealt with this issue.
And how many times has this all of yours been broken?
It literally was some separate fragments, there, let's say, for 10 minutes, no more and not frequent. Until the period when I told you that I brought it to my grandmother, and says what you want, says, because I can't be like that. Or he says, I am, he says, crazy, he says, or he says, there is something nearby, he says, it definitely exists. Then Grandma read and closed her eye. She says, I closed everything I could say to him, but the time will come, she says, when it opens. But since then, maybe since the age of 5, it probably didn't touch me, didn't bother me in any way. Even before my grandmother's death, until the transfer took place. That is, I was 11 years old. She died here. And at the age of 13, I opened my first visual, so to speak, as my mother called a hallucination. That is, I began to see outlines, that is, I began to see highlights. I began to see moments like, if you look at the sun on the road, a haze, that is, there is such a haze. Such an invisible one rises, but it is visible as if this is the heat. Here, in essence of this kind, as, say, human-like, there may be a bunch of some kind of Mario. That is, but I really see him as Mario. This is it sitting at the table, and, as it were, near the mother, for example. And I look at this Mario, what it does, as if the mother is looking at me at this moment, that is, I am already, as it were. Well, they're decently 12, 13 years old. Here. But so far, no questions have been asked.
That is, you just saw her, but at the same time you are with you.
Yes, they have not been in contact, and are not going. Why? I'm going to explain why spirituality does not immediately come into contact, so as not to frighten and injure the psyche.
That is, in this way she prepared you too.
Every spiritual substances, contacts. If we are contacts, then they initially prepare us for this. That's why I have observed on my own repeatedly, even taking people as students, let's say they are 35, 30, 40 years old, who have already said that they are engaged in magic, nothing can frighten them. But in fact, it turned out to be completely different. That is, they saw Mario, they saw what I showed them, for example. And well, the psyche, how the human psyche reacts at that moment, like a computer. Slip. That is, he does not know anything, he is overloaded, that is, files go out, pink, slip. And the computer is disconnected. Unconscious state. Also in humans. That is, if you have some kind of creature standing next to you, and it will, let's say, try to talk to you or touch you with something. Although according to the rules, they have no right in any case to be the first to approach and touch a person.
In other words, does a person have to give some kind of consent to some extent?
Consent, permission.
Here you say that the entity does not immediately. This is, let's say, a being. It does not immediately make contact, or simply prepares. And here's how it prepares a person for the person himself, to accept, say, this being. How is it? How does this contact happen?
Initially, when you see them and get used to the visibility. That's the visibility you're used to already. Well, it passed, but it flashed, but it flew by itself. But then, they try to gradually come into contact already auditory.
And how does the first contact happen?
Auditory usually begins in a half-asleep state, a sleepy state. We call it astral projection. That is, when we are practically asleep in the morning and do not sleep. That is, it can happen to you. Well, let's say I had such moments when my mother stayed with me on the night shift. Well, I understand that there is no one at home, except me and my little brother. That is, I need to get up, get dressed for school, dress my brother. Here. But I clearly heard my mother's voice. Sasha gets up, asks me to go to school, you'll sleep through school there. That's me, why I get up, as if getting dressed, but at that moment I understand, and I go into my brother's room. I say, Vova, has mom come or what? I'm talking. He says, no, no one. No, says you and me. I mean, but I was woken up by my mother's voice. And in this way, somehow gradually.
He's just a mother's voice. And what? Well, it's possible. It's, let's say, a hallucination, as if they understood that it was this one. Well, what do you call them? entities, or who are they?
Keepers, let's say. Then, when we were already separated, I will say so, more than 3 or 2 years have already passed, when I started directly, without being afraid to ask the question, who are you? What do you want, and what do you want from me? Why do I see you and others don't see you? That's why I hear you, and others don't hear you. Here. But I got the answers for myself, in principle, they satisfied me, and so on.
So they answered you. And how did they respond?
We have an internal hearing, it's like an internal dialogue. And at that moment, when you already understand that another civilization is talking to you, let's say, completely different. That is, it was called dead spirits and souls. And it was scary, of course, to say in the house. Moreover, I have repeatedly been at work with my mother, that is, she was the head of the department of a psychiatric clinic. And moreover, at that time it was still a children's department. That's what I remember so much. Here. It was hard for me to tell her that Mom, I hear, Mom, I see.
Did we keep everything to ourselves?
Yes, I kept it to myself.
They were afraid to cope with this on their own, but to walk.
You know, when it starts from childhood, and when this approach is gradual, you are so inconspicuous. And it seems to you that everyone should hear, everyone should see it all. It was very wild for me. Well, are you kidding me, I think. What I see, and you don't say, you don't see, and you're freaking out, and you're nervous. And also because of the fact that I supposedly foreshadow something there, some moments, fragments. And at that time, we were already living with our stepfather. My stepfather worked, let's say, at a meat processing plant there. He had to, let's say, do some business there. I clearly heard that he would come covered in blood, and he would need to be very careful.
And how old were you then?
And at that time I was 14, maybe it was. Already, when it was already so good, I began to listen, as they say, that's all. Here I say, you will be covered in blood, and you will need to be very careful. And what's more, you know, it's me watching movies now and thinking, my God, how similar it is. I got up and left the room, and I needed to breathe. I have such a bad breath, then you know how from memory.
That is, when this happens.
Fear.
Well, as a vision you say, does it make you feel bad on a physical level?
And at that moment it was bad, that is, you were suffocating with fear, and suffocating from the fact that you posted it, you said it. A chair. Yes, how would you say it out loud? Well, naturally, it was not accepted in any way. That is, well, he blurted out something, left something, left something. Well, what turned out to be the next morning, we rose noisily, of course, I went to school, my brother went to kindergarten. And the mother says, Kai is more careful, like they say, his stepfather is sleeping there, he says. And there were troubles yesterday, he says, at work. They were beaten, and, in general, friends brought them into the house. Here. And these fragments, well, I do not know, maybe 4, maybe 5 were. At one point, it was after, let's say, another 2, probably 3 years, when I was practically making ritual projects in my house. In my yard. That is, I did a rituals, burning bonfires.
They started doing it.
But under spiritual guidance, yes. I am often asked, who is your teacher? And I'm like this, I say, God is my teacher, the spirits of my teacher, that is, who came, well, I won't call it that right away. I won't explain. Here. And at that moment, when he's already tired of this, apparently, he says, Allah says, I'll ask you to talk to Kai, so that he doesn't do this to me anymore. In other words, he didn't say, you don't have to look at me like that, You don't have to predict anything there or say something else there. He says nothing good, he didn't say anything. He says I haven't got any more money, on the contrary, he says I'm all broken, he says I'm coming. So, well, the mother came out to talk. That is, she talks and says, I need to talk to you. Here, but I'm going to school again, then run. She's going to work. She says she smoked. Come on, I'll smoke. And it was summer, they went outside. Sitting down, she says, tell me please, what he did to you, that is, stepfather, that you hate him so much, he says. You are bolts. Where do you even get this from? He says, that's it, he says. After all, everything you say says, so it is, it says. I mean, what is it? I say, Mom, I say, I don't know that. I say, what do they tell me? I say, that's what I translate. She says, stop, from now on, please. I say, come on, he says, detailed. Who are they? And I have a stop now, and I can't talk.
They forbid you.
The question of the sacrament. That is, there was, yes, the question of the sacrament. We had an out-of-hours contract. We agreed that no one would know about it, that is.
And when did you conclude this contract?
Well, roughly speaking, this is the contract. Just don't say that this is a sacrament, and it will work only as long as it is a sacrament. If you don't want it to work, then you can tell it to someone. It will cease to be a sacrament, and on a purely energetic level, it will lose its impact, and it simply will not work. Are you interested in this? I say no. That means, he says, think before telling you something, or not to tell you.
Did this happen at 13 or what time?
This? You know, I can't tell you the exact dates, but I will tell you for sure that at the age of 16 or 17, I had already seen and heard. In other words, I could already conduct a dialogue, so to speak. I started to have a dialogue. Here. And still not understanding what I produce, what I do, not believing what is happening at all, is happening. That is, I heard about the spiritualistic circle, that is, it is possible to make a spiritualistic circle. You know, Uzbekistan is a Muslim country, as it were. And everything that is relatively concerning, except Allah and Muhammad, is all sin, haram, that is. Everything is forbidden, everything is prohibitive. So, naturally, literature was banned in our country regarding, let's say, demons, spirits, devils, demons. Although by and large, there are a very, very large number of people, those who are engaged exclusively there, let's say, with some kind of magical jokes.
Even if it is forbidden, let's say, and even.
Forbidden, yes. But I even have a diploma where I am recognized as a tabib. Tabib is a doctor, that is, there is a spiritual doctor, that is, a spiritual healer.
It's interesting. If you continue this topic, you said that you have already started telling your mother.
Yes, we are.
What's ours?
Let's go back to the moment when I have already said that I hear and then I translate, as if explaining.
I'm in a language like.
That is, in the language in which you understand. Any language, that is, it can be any language. I started learning Arabic and Farsi at the age of 18. Here, to understand some more serious texts. Serious texts I call it already when I started looking for people who have the same abilities. But they all turned out to be Muslims, of course. And where they opened, showed books, well, let's say, quite old books, ancient books, and where, of course, it was described in Arabic. You won't find any translator anywhere right now, so that he just takes a book, say, Arabic magic in his hands, and there. If I show him there, let's say, some kind of drawing there, if he sees there, let's say, some Arabic there. And it will be written there, let's say jinn there, let's say, or there's a seal of jinn. Or somewhere it will be said that the evocation of shaitan, The evocation there, let's say, is a ritual for acquiring powerful great lions. That is, evocation, in order to become as powerful as a lion. Here, that is, he immediately drove you away. That is, any person is a Muslim believer. I am sure that our people, those who are people, have already published their books. I have already released my books of sacred magic and Arabic magic, maps of Genies, which was the first time at all. This is the first one, it's exclusive. I got to know one uncle very well. Here, he was already old enough for that. And I'm probably more like this, you know, then I run to the market, then something else there. He knew what I was seeing, how I was seeing. Somewhere, even at some moments, he attracted me in order for me to confirm or see what kind of person he was. Mentors. Yes. That is, I myself was wondering what I was dealing with. Because, you understand, to understand later, as if in your adulthood, that this is who you are. That is, there are not enough of you. And then, when I was already talking closely with all the spirituality that why did I get ritualistic? Because they had such moments. That is, and you want to increase your energy level. So they gave you a chance. Did they give you a yes or no chance? That is a choice, we will say so. Here. But.
That's when you've already reached out to them, right?
Yes, when you are already turning, or when they manifest. That is, it manifests itself, so that it is just as I said, that it is just 100 scarf. I say, can you teach me something? Here. He says, do you want wealth? I say, I want to. He says, then you will have to do this, that, and that.
And what exactly?
Well, give or take. I'll say that in the evening, you will need to light a bonfire, 2 bonfires, for example, as tall as you are. So that there is a flame, and you will have to walk around these bonfires, write out an 8, and say only these 5 words, that is.
In other words, they gave you the exact, let's say, what you need to do, right?
Now, but again, it was a sacrament.
Do you have to do this yourself?
Only me, yes. Why? I could say that I need to, say, make a bonfire. I could in Mom, Dad, Grandma, I could ask, where did you take the firewood? I say, to the backyard. Why? I say, I need a bonfire, I want to make a bonfire in the evening. Here. Well, what's there? And then we had such a field, a football field, thank God, you could do anything there.
But what you did is a precursor to what you agreed to. Or what was all this for?
Since I understood at that time that knowledge and the necessary set of forces were needed in order to go into the world, and carry such a burden on myself, the one that, let's say, heal spiritually, invade human destinies, let's say. Every person who comes, let's say, the spirits explain to us from the fact that remember that every person who comes brings you a piece of his fate. And if something goes wrong with this fate, you will be guilty first of all. And then, when a person comes and tells me about his own, but I see that there are, as they say, spiritual substances, so to speak. Spirituality, standing next to me, then I had to tell them the way it is. I've been, let's say, 18 years, I've already had my own certain people. And what kind of people were there? From those people with whom I basically worked, whom I helped somewhere, where, when they called me, for example. To look at something, to be afraid of something, or to hold a person at the moment when they are possessed, when the spirit enters them. That is, for me at that moment it was like the first vision when I saw people possessed. This is the invasion of one spirit, there, let's say, into a person like this. And moreover, he speaks a completely different language. A person really begins to growl somewhere. But there were some moments like, I think if there was a camera, and if it were all filmed, then Steven Spielberg would probably be resting, probably. What we saw and what we heard at that time.
Could you describe how you see them? In other words, what kind of form do they have?
Shape, right now, at this moment, let's say a round shape flies between us, it turns into a diamond-shaped, into a rainbow-like shape, and just glows. Yes, she leaves for you and in the direction of the genie for you. That is, if you look closely with a distracted look, then in principle it is possible as such. That is, if my group is sitting, we are watching focused on one thing, that is, it is not a hypnosis factor, that is which. I am still a psychiatrist by education, and we know, as they say, hypnosis, and we know how to enter into a trance state. Then this is not a hypnotic state as some say. He puts them into hypnosis, and that's why they begin to see, and that's why they begin to heal with him. And what is going on? Well, okay, I have hypnosis, but your grandmother came, and what about my hypnosis, and your deceased grandmother, whom I describe? Who says, I am Galina and Dmitri's grandmother? I say, why did you come? She says a hand touched him, an energy hand, and that's why I reacted. In other words, it is called a tree. Already the reaction of the tree to an extraneous intrusion into the energy.
Do you use hypnosis? Yours.
Hypnosis is used. I have the medical right to enter a person into a hypnotic state, into regressive hypnosis for treatment. But by and large, yes, if you say why I went into medicine. Why I went more into vibration technology, because even now we are talking, my voice is completely different. That is, the vibration of my voice is completely different. That is, if you and I go out now for a smoke break or drink tea there. That is, I will have a completely different voice. That is, the postivny voice. Somewhere it's not me who's already starting to talk. Then, when I start pronouncing as you people can, that is, I'm already partly not here.
And who says that to you?
Someone is already hosting, I call it.
And you notice when this happens?
I've been not recently, for about 8 years, probably, it's people who have become wonderful. And say, is that what you say? He says it's in the third person. He says, where are you people from? What are you, but how can you? That is, they say, and who are you, not a person. That's when I started thinking to myself, I think, my God, but I'm already talking on behalf of spirits,
And how do you feel when you are not you, let's say, when someone?
The condition is almost normal. Well, it's just that you give your kind for temporary use, so to speak, the one who is next to you. These are the keepers that we recruit, those keepers who are higher, older, lower, that is, permission. Who are you getting permission for? To my ancestors, to my kind, that is, my ancestors are there somewhere, here my mouth is somewhere, it is always open. I always know that they are with me next. There are some other acquired keepers out there somewhere. Why do we go where? Sometimes there are Egyptians somewhere else. In other words, we are acquiring additional such.
Assistance.
Yes, this is a separate one.
Does this substitution happen often?
Substitution automatically already occurs when we recruit keepers of all cases.
There is even.
Keepers of all cases. These are restless souls, those who have committed suicide, but realized this and wanted to continue their lives. But they are wandering around the cemetery, and then we will call them, so to speak. That is, it is a whole ritualistic one.
So this is being done specifically to summon them?
Summon, yes. Roughly speaking, I tell them, do you want to refine your karma with people through me? That is, and go quietly to another world. That is, yes, we do. That is, then you follow me, I perceive. And they are automatically self-replaced over the years. That is, sometimes I even forget what the names are there.
Do they have any?
Of course. That is, they die under whatever name they remain under.
Hello.
Hello. I am very glad to welcome you here, in my small, modest monastery, where there are very few and rarely when such a company enters. Especially a film crew, a group. Here. But why does the question rarely enter, and then she suddenly came in, then well, I foresaw it somewhere literally in 2 weeks. That is, it should be like this. And that's why your sums was no secret to me.
Tell me, please, why did you choose the path to magic? How is it with you?
A choice. We are not given a choice. We become, we are born them. Or if we choose, then we have a deposit already, but at a more mature age, we still find ourselves carefully choosing a teacher, a master, a mentor. We are moving into this period of time, to the already energetic background of life. Here. But God chooses for us, therefore.
You said you had helpers.
Assistants.
How do you interact?
The helpers are the keepers. Interaction takes place at our internal level. I put most of all, not the external sound, more gave them to talk so externally, let's say, yes. Anyway, a person wouldn't have heard, but for me it would have been a confusion. That is, I would confuse the words, for example, well, let's say we have 4 or 5 people. And I would think that one of you asked me about something. Here. And so at the time I switched to an internal conversation. And there was also the convenience of no one hearing it. That is, it was a sacrament. For me, the sacrament is very important. It was a mystery. Yes, I heard. If I wanted to say something, I said it. If I was allowed to say something, yes, I did.
That is, you definitely need their permission not to.
Permission in rare cases is only when it concerns only them, for example. Their description, their meanings, their. But it's like taking, now I'll say, for example, to you, take your phone, and distribute it to everyone there. Here's her phone, call her, she's a beauty. Everyone's calling and everything. And also about spirits, for example, yes, to say, here I have such a spirit there, you all call, here it is a seal. And everyone turns, and he will answer everyone. No, there is no such thing.
And what do they usually transmit? What do they want to transmit through you?
The more information is transmitted, the more people are interested. There are individuals who are interested solely in the medical part, for example. Treating, relieving pain, relieving tumors. Someone positions himself more in vision, for example, that is, a clairvoyant. Someone positions himself by communicating with the spirits of the dead. That is, someone is already in the mantle, it's in pre-ordering, indifferent. There are a lot of years below, that is, the predictions are the fact itself, but them.
When people come to you, it is precisely these assistants who, through you, say that to a person.
That's what I'm telling you now, yes. At that time, probably for another 2 years, I would not have admitted that this is so. Yes, spiritual people talk to a greater extent. Keepers. The keepers talk the most.
The keepers, you say, are there several of them?
There can be a lot of them. There is a book that somehow came into my hands. These are the notes of Stominov. This kind of fiction is very interesting, let's say, where he describes his life, how he started, and how he was given teaching. And how he was given education. As he said there, if I'm silent, it doesn't mean that I'm not talking. That is, and here I also have such moments in my life when I am silent. My friends and colleagues ask me, "Why are you silent?" I say, I'm not silent, I'm talking, I'm communicating. For example, during the day I may have, let's say, 5 or 6 people there with different, let's say, some questions that came. And my keepers and I need to specify each ritual part of each person, in order to achieve certain goals. And such, let's say, a conversations in a day can be 6, for example, yes. So I'm going to talk to you now, people will come to me, that is, the reception will go further. Here I will completely forget that we had a conversation with you. Because there are more pressing questions such as to whom how much grass to add, where what oil to take, how much to top up, how much salt is needed, what will it do? Will she bathe in this salt? Will she pray for some signs to use sacred magic or Arabic magic, or take there, let's say, just Druid magic? Go into something woody there, collect some wooden crusts. That is, I have a conversation. Conversations go on almost 24 hours a day, and even until I wake up.
And how do you feel if you have this happening all the time?
I'm not going to complain anywhere. There is practically nowhere to put energy. That is, I have a physique of 110 kilograms now, at the moment, as if in physical shape to a greater extent. I have enough energy, that is, I need to splash out somewhere. I found a splash of energy, that is, on metal.
That is, you have a surge of strength, an addition of strength, let's say, when you are you communicating with them?
Then we heal. We say, blessed is the one who blesses. That is, even healing, everything that you heal is healed. Everything that I call out to the energies, the forces to open up to space, then I am endowed with it. I am the carrier. I am often asked why you don't wear amulets, some protective signs, I don't know. It's stupid to wear it to someone who has all this magic inside already,
So it turns out that you heal at the expense of your strength.
Spiritual power. It's a spiritual force. My strength is almost as insignificant as it is possible for a human to be. I have internal resources that are practically used to being constantly open and constantly thirsty.
And what kind of resources?
Every person has vital resources. Then when you are tired, Then when you are not exhausted already. And then people come to me. Sometimes they say, Kai, just don't do anything shamanic there, witchcraft. Just with your hands as you treat, that is, help me. What am I doing? I am literally there with 3 claps, with 2 words. I activate the inner column in a person, that is, his entire vertebral column. The internal resources of a person. And man begins to blossom. That is, literally within 15 minutes we are already talking, we are already talking, we are already. That is, from a wilted and drooping person after 15 minutes, as if there was already such a cheerful person who says, I just came to life. You know?
Do they even describe it like that?
Yes. He says, I'm right alive. That is, here is such a moment.
And what else do people come to you with?
You know, right up to oncology, and ending with a lot of personal problems. Women mostly come. This is what I call even my work on Facebook I often exhibit. Health work, egregors. There are 3 egregors: the egregor of health, the egregor of material status, and the egregor of marital status. That is, family, money and health. These are 3 factors. I think it's unnecessary to hide, and it's stupid to hide, and talk about what humanity cares about most now. Rarely, when in exceptional cases, for example, a man or a woman comes to me, in particular a woman, and says, Kai, I don't want anything for myself. I have a husband, he provides enough for me, provides enough for the child, and I want you to help my husband. But only so that he does not know. You know?
Is it possible?
Can you imagine it's possible? That is, it is so rare. Yes, it's possible.
How can you influence a person?
Well, you know, our energy, thought form, or if we can't create an energy flow ourselves, let's say raise. Take it now, then I'm hot, that is, I can be cold right there. But this is my personal spiritual. I never use practically my personal spiritual energy. That is, I need it myself. That's why our generation is so old. Let's say, grandmothers say, I've adopted 4, and I can't do everything, I've been sick for a week. In other words, she used her own resources. I was taught by spiritual forces to use the power of prana, energy, chi, prana, Holy Spirit. Cosmos, whatever you call it, I draw energy from outside. That is, I do not draw energy from you, you will not be exhausted, and will not fall absolutely. Why? Because, but I absolutely do not need your energy, because it is already involved in some of my own experiences. I can download this energy, but I absolutely don't need it. There is a pure, luminous flow of energy. I'm opening up space. Being in Israel at one time, I studied very ancient treatises for 9 months. Few of my students even know this. I tell my students where you are the source of all this. I have studied ancient treatises that will never be published.
And what are they called?
Well, let's say it's a mystical cabal. Roughly speaking, let's take what is simply cabal, Kabbalism. This is an ancient cabal, but we have studied before Jesus Christ, and during the time of Christ, and even the Sumerians themselves. That is, since these times.
And what exactly is in these tracts?
There is a lot of information that is promoting how to enter any of these parallel worlds. How to summon a certain spirit, or a higher rank of some Sirius for some kind of procession. Let's say for some kind of teaching, for example, rote sacred magic, this is one of the things allowed to me. So let's say with spirituality to discover exactly those signs that promote. You summon a higher being, not in order to do something, to deceive, to conjure, but in order to rise, to self-actualize. That is, to know something more, to know the higher. And they explain it to you. That is, if your question is in their competence, let's say, to give an answer, they say it is in our competence. We can give it to you while being in this state, and you are in this state, receiving information. This information is recorded.
Does this special state have to be?
This is a special meditative state, or the state into which almost anyone, say, a Mac or a psychic, falls. Some, for example, they do not need to fall into this state, that is, they always have this with him.
So they come and give people, let's say, knowledge. Yes. What is the benefit of this, say, assistant?
Those of, say, education and a higher sphere for the Creator. In all the scriptures, notice always, I want to say to the people, I want to say to society and people. Praise the Creator everywhere, in all the scriptures. Look, whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Holy Book, everywhere it doesn't say that give God, say, sheep or give God grapes or something like that. That is, praise the Creator, that is, praise. We are a part of God, that is, we are created in the image of God, as we say, yes, the Bible says. We are created in the image of God. Therefore, let's say God, having separated at birth, here you are born, He exhales His soul into you. That God requires you to grow up, so that from this little candle with your knowledge, skills, work skills, to help. To have compassion, that is, the most majestic, powerful energy that exists in us exists. This is compassion that we use in our practice. Only a compassionate person can pour out so much energy, for example, to heal some kind of sore or some kind of disease, or to influence space, to influence events, to partially change some kind of event that occurs in a person's life, to curtail, somehow help, for some period of time to suspend that is, to enable a person to rethink something, to suspend the negative influence that is already happening over a person, over himself. Why? Because God sometimes makes a person come to me, and I say, I can't help you. Why? Because this is already the nature of the Creator. The Creator prescribed karma for you, and let you in here to work it out.
And how do you determine whether a person needs help now or not? Or which methods you should?
We have. That's what. As the spirits always tell me. They say, what did we teach you? And what did we teach you? Psychology. What did we teach you about psychiatry? You're a psychologist plus everything. So you think that I immediately came, and immediately I opened my cards to you and told you about the spirits. No, I have a conversation with a person first. That is, I first initially understand the psychological factor. Do I need to open the curtain of that world once again to climb in there? Why? Because they immediately ask the spiritual forces, "Why did you call?" That is, I should immediately say that a girl came to me, treat her. Well, this is nonsense. If I understand that I am misunderstanding something in the situation, and if there is not enough of that energy, for example, or I do not know how to properly channel it into a person, then I turn to magic. This is magic. What is magic for me? For me, magic is already to summon a being, let's say, one that has been around for centuries, one that has already lived, and is still living, and, as it were, helps and knows how to help. Here is the right convocation, and the challenge of spirituality of this kind for me is already called, as it were, magic. That's what I call magic. Here. And all until the challenge touches more global beings. In other words, it is still an energy influence. The energy impact is yours personally, whether it will work with you. Or we simply correct with the help of hypnotic trance techniques, first, then by text. We can straighten it out, in principle, on a subconscious level and understand, let your subconscious understand that I was wrong, that is, I distorted everything, I lied to my husband. He beat me up because of this already in the end, because how much can you already use it there? Let's say everything is like his resources. I'm the one who has to work. And in the end, I'm the mother who has to give her child something too, without relying on her baby, who was almost stoned there. Because she sat down on some kind of chair once again, on her feather bed.
And in what cases do you summon these higher beings?
But it's enough in more serious ones. When the question concerns life and death. I want to hear if I can invade when I see that all human resources are exhausted. A person comes to me, for example, he has exhausted all resources. Whether it's 25 years old, whether it's 30 years old, whether it's 60 years old, a woman or a man who says I can't. I don't have the strength, everything. That is, my doctors do not understand what is happening to me, and I do not understand what is happening to me. Help me or tell me I'm dying or something.
And what?
Then I need an analysis, not mine, unfortunately, of magic, shamans and sorcerers to anyone. Then if people turn when you are sitting and hanging out in front of you, and this is the word, the phrase, I think. Well, who are you that you think? They came to you to find out the future. So you can't know this future. That is, you are the receiver yourself. How can a receiver take, disconnect, say, I'm not a beacon, I'm not catching a beacon, for example, I'm not this, I'm not that. And the same thing happens here. I have to summon, open space, summon a higher standing structure that says, you have no right to invade the karma of God. Otherwise you will take this karma upon yourself.
It's interesting to know. You said that you are opening a portal. What kind of portal is this, and how do you open it?
The strength of faith and what you have in you, you gain so, roughly speaking, in the air. Before that, there is a prayer, a certain state, and you speak, you gain strength, you gain so much energy in your chest. so that you can say the strength of faith, and with the power given to me, I open the space. And I make a cutting sign over the project or over the process. That is, if you look at the back, then there are only no photos on which work took place. I open the space above it all. And a crack literally opens. That's where so many keepers, so many spirits, as necessary, penetrate firm in a split second.
How to understand how much is needed. When you do this, you ask how many spirits should come. They themselves.
They already understand themselves. And in general, whether it is necessary to do it as such. I have recently attracted a lot of energy and vibration. I have applied myself to the knowledge of vibration. That is, vibrations. What is vibration? What kind of vibration? Earlier in my time, the Spirit told me that you won't understand, you have to grow up. But it turned out that I had to grow up to 46 years old to understand what vibration is. At the age of 40, I was interested in bells, tambourines. It's not in terms of shamanism, it's not in terms of the fact that there I became a shaman or something else. But it's the vibration itself, that each tambourine has its own vibration, each stick of dudina, which are to the tambourine. Its own sound quality, its own impact force, and its own vibration.
You also use tambourines in your practice, right? And in what cases do you use tambourines? In what cases do you use, I see, cards? What else do you use during the session?
And you know, by and large, I will tell you that in the last period of time, at the moment, I personally am already as a master. As a mentor, as a spiritual person, I try to use less. Why? Because I don't need the cards, you need the cards. Because I can sit and talk to a person for an hour. I talk about gynecology, mammology, I talk about the thyroid gland, I talk about urology. I'm looking at, let's say, liveliness. If you want to give birth, the liveliness of spermatozoa, everything.
So you see it.
And how? Him. I fully feel, see or am informed about this by spiritual substances.
They are always present next to you during.
It happens differently in different situations. Therefore, it is very difficult to predict who I will have today. And sometimes it's very strange for me. We leave the office and I say, today was strange. Someone is very strange, and I liked him with his vibration, his energy, voice, sound. And I want to access it. I try for myself. I have whole Talmuds, books of personal growth, when I am engaged in personal growth, where I use meditations. Fasts, tambourines, fire necessarily, I use water, there is something else. That is, I'm trying to get to my keepers somewhere. Everything I studied when I was little, and when I understood some kind of adverb, just such a canophony, Samira. There, let's say, I had to write down these names, but for me, a boy, even a 14 or 15-year-old, they were absolutely soundless. An incomprehensible set of words. Until then, until I dipped into the infernal gins, and learned their names. Inksa, Sophia, Kalisa.
Are these their names?
Approximately, yes. That is, well, I call some natural, some unnatural, because a lot of people will see us, and I confuse the information a little bit. But I won't get confused by a good magician, as they say, so it will be understandable.
But this deck, it has, well, it has a given name, say.
The deck is whites. This is a very old deck, my personal one when I was in Uzbekistan. I didn't have enough funds yet. Well, I also studied, you know, that is to buy, for example, even through Moscow, a deck of cards. It cost a lot of money, as it were, and I couldn't explain to my mother that a deck was needed there. I had a friend from whom I copied the cards and made myself a deck of cards from white at that time. And since then they have been traveling with me for so many years.
Can you show them to us so that our viewers can see them too?
Yes. Well.
When do you use this deck?
Understand, look. For example, even you see, the usual queen of spades, but I pasted another lady on top, sixes. But plus, these are all the signs, and these are all the meanings that exist, I have already imposed, when dictated by spirits. What would it mean? That is, well, these, let's say, there are no icons of Arabic magic. It is.
And you predict on these maps.
Yes.
What are you doing?
But I consider the circumstances with the situation. You know, to a greater extent, the cards began to serve as proof to me that I also hear plus everything. Here. Until, over a long period of time, I created my own deck of jinn cards. Why Genies cards? You know, I'm probably afraid to say, in terms of even the fact that, well, probably, the Muslim world would cut me to shreds. That is, even for showing, let's say, the Muslim world there, let's say, the same Genies, and how they look, for example. Here. But taking into account the fact that I have been through a lot of information, and I know that such Genies, how they can work, how they can respond, how they can see a person, how they can be present nearby, and help a person in some way. The interpretation of the cards is very different. In other words, we have associative maps of psychology. That is, psychologists use them. That is, when there are incomprehensible pictures, you choose two pictures, and a psychologist works with you on these two pictures. Right here, in these maps, the information is half dead. That is, I call them half dead. Not only that, they will explain the situation to you, and you can use the same genie, let's say, ask for it. That is already so. But I'm already giving a lecture on how to work there, let's say, with these maps. Ask to correct the situation. If he says, I am not competent, choose the next one. That is, again, according to a certain mathematical scheme, that is, brute force, we choose a card. And a more competent one already comes out.
So there are different Genies who are responsible for different, say, services.
Literally, you can practically.
But the person who turns in this case two cards, two guins, he has to pay with something, right?
A person pays with something like this. Yes, a very big question. This is all answered by books already there, or you are leading a whole lecture. There is such a thing as sacrifice. That is, there is a bloody one, and it is called a sacrifice. There is an offering, from the word offering, to bring. We have churches, grandmothers, hungry, someone's family is hungry. For example, I understand that I have a neighbor's family. Well, I'm sorry if you see me talking about it. How would I transfer some kind of products I collect from this person? What is included in the offering? The offering includes butter, bread, kahers, more than 1 kilogram of rice, sugar. That is, I have a whole table here.
And this is all the products.
When a person comes and, for example, you order, I call it transferring all your magic to, say, an amulet to some kind of there, right? I make an amulet there, let's say, I put it on this product next to it. A person sits down next to it. Let's say her name is Marina, and she says, "What should I think about? What kind of product is this?" I say, "Marina, whatever you think you owe someone something, I'm going to say in prayer now, that is, I'm opening up space. And I'm going to say in prayer, or there in settings, that this is a gift from you, you're giving it, it's not me who collected it. You gave me the money, and I bought it. And it will be taken to the temple or, say, there in the cemetery or somewhere else there, or somewhere else there."
In what cases? In what cases in the cemetery?
I don't carry meat to church anymore. Although lately I have been giving, but only I immediately catch my grandmother, who helps there in the church, in the temple. I say, "Grandma," I say, "here's the package." I say, "I will not take this package after the reading, this is a memorial package, it is completely yours." That is, you use the name Marina there. Pray for her. To a large extent.
In cemeteries, in what cases?
In cemeteries, in cases, this is when we are already working with more slightly negative forms, and when there is a more greedy urge. Some say, "Why don't you work for free?" Well, I'm sorry please, you asked me for a Lexus for a year, a rich, good husband there. And I have to breathe smoke here for 40 minutes, you know there, killing my lungs 3 times a day, and also do this to you. That is, of course, here I no longer have the right to sell only a prayer. I have no right to sell holy water. I have no right to sell the word of God.
Carrying it to the cemetery, that is, in this way, what happens?
Here it is already energetically illuminated, sprinkled, gratitude is accepted, energetically obtained, permeated with a tambourine. Permeated. Speaking of threading, I'm going to show you a little secret like this now, but it's not a secret anymore for a long time. Many monasteries and temples know this. But such a miracle appeared a little bit for me, as if in my Kelly and such. It is permeated with energy, and belongs to the cemetery. And in the cemetery, certain spiritual substances, so to speak, take their energy, leaving the dog's meat. Or someone will take it away, or someone else will take something. That is, everything has its own. Everyone takes his own in turn.
That is, when a person treats some kind of negative, then in theory, since you say that he has some
negative, we have to use a negative gift, or the killing of an animal. But killing an animal happens for life. That is, life for life, drop for drop. It's a little bit longer story. God forbid, I'll tell you about it next time. Then yes applies. And moreover, it is used up to the chicken and ending with bulls. That is, there is such a presence to this. Negative energy, IDS death, life and death. Negative energy. If you came with greed with your own, you also came here to me with deception. You know, I will honestly say that I sometimes have such fragments when I say, let's agree like this. You're telling the truth. You're cheating me for your own money. That's it, I say. I got my $200 or 2,000 hryvnias there, for example, but you will leave me with nothing. That is like this. And naturally, we are already talking about the fact. And as for the energy, I wanted to show that we had a moment when we had to repaint the room. Here. Well, they began to sort it all out, as if to pile it up. And when we got to the table, I believe that there is behind you, well, not that there is light, there is pure energy. Here I have an average. We communicate with you, we talk. Here I am already conducting more global projects, the object of the projection of works. And despite the fact that in one period of time something was even bought earlier, something was even bought somewhere older.
So all of these attributes, do they play a role in your practice?
Yes. Then, when the tambourine strikes, it is not possible, yes, to move. That's when the tambourine strikes already. Vibration is already beginning to sound. I am announcing the attention of spirituality. That is, something will happen now, as they say. Now the vibration is already beginning, prayer is already beginning, or the burning of some materials, vims, is already beginning. Well, at the moment when we have collected everything already, we have reached this table, I say, let's sort of clean up the table. We raised the icon of the Archangel Michael. And what did we notice? Do you see the image of the same Archangel Michael?
There is something.
Now, if you look closely at that image of Archangel Michael and this Archangel Michael, then they correspond to each other. That is, there is a box here, that is, there is actually a piece of paper there. But somehow we didn't even have the conscience to take and paint over it, as it were. Why? Because all the other pictures were taken. We didn't see anything like that there, for example, a saint or a reflection of, say, the imprint of some shrine. Here. And after this painting, icons' images were formed. Please.
Why did they manifest themselves like this?
That's what we have a little secret. You understand how they are displayed energetically. On Novomoskovskaya, there is a church of the Most Holy Theotokos, where the Most Holy Theotokos was reflected in this way on the glass. That is, not made with hands. In other words, the same thing is not man-made here. We see there are more serious prints. It is no longer visible here, because it has already been smeared. but it was very clearly visible. But they continue to manifest themselves, as it were. Therefore, me.
I see that you also have runes, right? Or what?
Runography, yes. Runes, staves, glyphs, the same signs in sacred magic. I'll hang her up later. Here. In sacred magic, all the signs that are used, they are completely new. These are the people who will be engaged in the house after me. As they say, what did you leave behind? Well, I left behind, let's say, something that is not written anywhere. This is my personal work.
And what is contained in this book?
Well, everything here is from Hades to me. The seal is a confession, it is very powerful. This, imagine, it was necessary to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, recording everything with almost closed eyes. I wrote it, I drew it, I just corrected it. And I just gave it to the publisher so that. Here you are, a sign of subconscious hints, yes. But you took it for yourself, well, you drew it, you took it for yourself, on what you created it. On the bracelet, for example, there. For no reason at all, you kind of go and think, damn, but where would you get it? And you have for no reason at all, to Marinka. That is, you have a hint, but you don't understand where it comes from. And you forgot about this sign. And you go and your intuition constantly tells you. A difficult period of life, when they come, they make these signs, symbols. Here I even photographed everything in detail, how, what to do. Here is from the 7 deadly sins, for the forgiveness of sins. Well, it's interesting enough, as it were. Interesting. You can take it, and if you carefully approach this issue of the sphere, at least with it, without any negligence, then you can take a sign and use it, well, like with a first grader. That is, here you don't know anything, here you buy a book, and it says take this sign, draw it 40 times, burn this dust. Throw it out there, for example. But carry the 41st one with you, and such miracles will begin to happen to you. But you have to be ready for them. My students, even some of them, go into spiritual killing. This is the exodus of a person almost to death. No one is given the power to kill a person or take his life, except for one Creator. The Creator always gives a chance to a person, and this chance is called faith. If you have enough faith at that moment to understand that something is wrong with you, medicine is completely unrelated here. Then your faith, with the help of a person will appear. God reacts. God reacts to our desires with people. Whatever you want, you will always have a person who will guide you, who will help you find even someone. Will be a guide, connect you, give you a good job or already give you a rich husband who will give you everything.
And do people come to you with some kind of subsettlements?
Often the settlers are a magical energy, a substance. What is the substance, the so-called larva? This is the creation of a being, the energy of the magician himself, or the shaman himself. Let's say he entered some kind of aggressive state by order, remembered all his negative fragments, moments. If they asked for something personal there, something personal. He achieved a state of grief, suffering, and just from this pain, he transferred the pain to the photo, so to speak. That is, it can, in principle, exude a person. These are the settlers. This is the energy, minus energy, we call it minus energy again, which, coming to you, to your field, biofield, is looking for minus energy. Where is her sore spot? Gynecology. Yeah, energy minus. Cold, I sit down. This energy can get hooked on gynecology, and start developing gynecological disease.
So they feed on it in some way.
Yes, they practically feed on your suffering, your pain.
It would be interesting to know, here we have abnormal accidents happening now. That is, for some reason, a person suddenly goes towards or turns off, and thus commits suicide. What happens at such moments?
There are different situations. Picked up such a powerful energy of roads. In general, the egregor is expensive, it is now very aggressive, and has become. Why? Because there are a lot of dissatisfied drivers. What is an egregor? Egregor is a common energy. In other words, we have an egregor of movement, that is, an egregor of roads. It has its own rules. Each egregor has its own rules. Crossed the road at a red light, a fine, crossed, moved, there's something else. And these are the circumstances that develop. Basically, there are still violent spirits. Spirits are those who disagree with their death at the time of an accident very often.
This, for the spirit,
An ordinary person. That is, he does not agree. It was also demolished in this way somewhere at one time. Maybe 4 kilometers, that is, it is not necessary. Maybe it was the state of Jersey somewhere. He crossed paths, instantly got here. Spatially, we have no time, no space, nothing. He was, for example, here. Here. And so he demolished, let's say, this person for himself.
But the person who is the driver himself, what happens to him on the road?
Disabling consciousness for a certain period of time. That is, for invasion and control, literally a click is necessary for a person. But this man already had it. But we say, but he had something to do with spirituality. That is, he is partly a medium, for example, but he did not know that he was a medium. Here. And so the spirit caught the medium, penetrated through him, did his job, and that's it. Mentally abnormal are with the psyche of anyone. They also have people with a split personality. With a split personality, the same thing can also happen.
It's also interesting to find out too these entities that are on the roads, how do they enter a person? You spoke through consciousness.
It could be an injury, it could be an open block, it could be a narcotic influence. A person under a drug, a person under ecstasy, a person under another kind of, say, a drug that may not be detected. A traumatized person, an epileptic person, can instantly lose his mind, that is, lose himself, and observe what is happening from the outside already. That is, he then moves back into himself, but it has already happened. That is, in the coup itself, 10 times his car, in addition to the fact that he has already knocked down a person. He remains generally unharmed, he has nothing. It's a miracle.
It was interesting to find out too, but now we also see in the news that a person, a schoolboy, goes to school and kills his peers. And what happens to a person that he goes for it? Teachers say he was withdrawn, he didn't talk there. And what happens to a person on an invisible level when he does this inhuman act?
I call this demoniacal. Then, when I was already an intern in psychiatry, I got into the children's department. And I looked at children from 6 to 13 years old. 12, 11, 12, 13, 14 years is just the hormonal background, hormonal overgrowth is going on. At what period exactly the gift can open, or on the contrary, any of this entity can move in.
And moves in.
The fact that we can be healers and in the future, as it were, have mass energies and different influences. We can also be possessed. As they say, we were chosen. Why did he choose us? Because I suited him psychologically, because he was exhausted, mentally attacked by his own parents, where his parents made nothing of him. I'm not going to name, as they say, I'm not naming specific personalities, but I still work with families, you know. Quite privileged individuals, quite rich individuals. Here. But I'm leading the kids. That is, I am already acting as a psychiatrist, as a parapsychologist, where this kind of incidents happens to them. Where they walk at night, where there is this sleepwalking, where mom already catches a child with a knife, approaching dad. The child is not aware of anything absolutely at this moment.
On an invisible level, what is going on with this person? In other words, how can this be explained?
How can I explain it to you? My vision of sleepwalkers for that period of time, even when I get to the clinic with the mentally ill, I see how their souls sometimes just walk around. It's as if they are tied up or they are already very close, as if they are like twins stuck to each other. Half the opinion of this, half the opinion of that. That is, it happens, you know. They don't understand who they are. There are twins. One dies in one and transmigrates, inhabits, that is, a double soul is born. That is, it happens. Rarely, but it happens.
It would also be interesting to know, but if you go back to a schoolboy who commits such an inhuman act, then why does he choose exactly where there are a lot of people? Why is there interest? Let's say that's where a lot of people are, and who needs it so that murder, let's say, is in large numbers.
That is, mass in mind. Mass character is very important. That is, if one explodes en masse, a chain reaction occurs. The chain reaction of self-fear involves what? Fear. You won't be there, you were scared and you laughed. You were scared too. Even the one who did not see who was afraid of what, was also afraid, because next to him, he was also afraid. There is a wave like this, let's say, a massive negative pile of energy, which he just sucked in with one breath. As if a demon, let's say, without, more there is some kind of essence, but it's not a spirit in any way. You know, by and large, I say logic somewhere a little bit, there include magicians, shamans, sorcerers. When a grandmother, grandfather, or someone close to you dies, and you say that they come for you to drag you away, kill you, strangle you. I say, you understand, there is a creator who has already taken a person to court. Let's say. But as a grandmother stands, looks into the face of God and says, wait, I haven't even strangled my daughter, granddaughter. Yes, I will finish it now, and then I will come, we will sue. But the logic, I say, where do you have it? That is, where our tree, which feeds us, protects us, strengthens us. It also wants to take us away, strangle us, trample on us. To help in something, to push something, to awaken, to say something, to push to the unnatural, to push us even. Go ask, they'll tell you something else. You have a danger, a spirit is following you, a demon is walking, a demon is following you. That is, it happens. There are fragments, children born already with a curse, already with a demon. In other words, this is when there are marriages, when they already know that the child is in the womb and say, "Oh, Mom, we will have a wedding there." Because the gala is already in its 3rd month. That is, the first thing that is maternal, this is there, well, a good mother, for example, there another one will say there. Oh, thank God. And the child is blessed and that's it. And the other one will say, you are getting married for this link, that is, you are getting married. So you also gave birth to a child. So it's all this is what I did to you, the car, is it all going to go to this freeloader or something? Yes, be damned there with your baby with a womb. Are you sure this is your child? That is, and up to this, it rushed and comes here. Can you remove this stuff? I call the child there, let's say. That is, I will pay what money there is what you need. I won't do it, but the other one will, because she offers, I'm sorry, I'll voice, $10,000, $15,000. Get this brute out of our lives altogether. Here are such proposals, you know there are. That is, well, okay, I won't do it, the other one will do it, the third one will do it, the fourth one will do it. It will be born. Well, it is written by God on the forehead, to give birth to a child from this person. Do you understand? It will be born. Let it not be cerebral palsy. It would have been better, God forgive me, if cerebral palsy had been born. She wouldn't have done such a thing. But there is already something in her that was instilled at that moment, cursing, breaking this contact, union, marriage. Well, let's go to the sorcerer. The sorcerer went to the cemetery, summoned the demons, there they also poured earth there, gave tea to the folding pigs. There is a moment when flowers are torn off from fresh graves, all that, they make tea and give it to, well, throw the child away. In other words, this exists in practice. And it is not for an unknown reason that the child freezes the fetus. That is, at 3 months, at 7 months, you can stop the fetus. Everything. And if the fetus has not stopped, then it means that someone has moved into it. But this one who has moved into him, here he is playing with such an audience as, say, a mass gathering, or a personal gathering.
And can you rid a person of such obsessives?
Of course.
And in what way?
Well, there are already a lot of techniques here.
But what exactly are you?
Pure religious forms of work, and ending up with sacrifices. There were moments in Islam when, let's say, magic, our shamans worked with people for 40 days, for 50 days in reports. For example, victims are cut and that's it. And somehow, for example, he gets to me, and I'm not bragging about it, not as an advertisement, nothing. But he comes to me, for example, and after 5 days, literally a person gets on his feet, starts eating and drinking himself. Yes, I made a sacrifice, I made an offering, as it were.
What kind of sacrifice exactly?
Let's say a lamb. The whole? He slaughtered a lamb. The strength is enough to stab him. Here. But it's true, we're kidding.
But after you perform this ritual for sacrifice, how do you feel after this ritual?
People think that someone who has such resources is easy. I have my close people who see me after the sick leave, or after the rituals when I come home, no. And I'm vomiting, and I'm sick, and that's it, I'm literally just turned off. That's how it happens. It happens normally. I went to the gym, even ran there like that. And it happens.
And in what cases do you feel so bad right here?
In rare cases, this is when a person has already done something like that, where I have already sort of got into, and in principle, probably wouldn't have to, probably. How to give it all to this person, to go this way, as it were. And I share his pain with him. She's texting me. I work with people, I immediately make a photo report that I have worked today. For example, there are signs, paleva, smoke and all that. In other words, she says, it happened to me, in principle, what happened to me. Starting from green diarrhea, and ending there, she says, I spit out a dead fly.
That is, what happens to the client as well, what?
Also, let's assume that I have everything. That is, I come home, if I have someone at home, I say, they already know me. Is there? I say no. Drink. I say no. Just lie down now. Here to lie down. That's it, I'm curled up in a ball. That's it, I need sleep. I am regenerated at this moment by sleep. In other words, my powers come to me in a dream, that is, they cover me like this, as they say. And they already begin to make their changes in me there somewhere. It happens for an hour or two, but for a day I can lie down, get up, then eat, run everything. The gym again, everything again. Happy and healthy.
Do you perform these rituals at any particular time?
There is no definite time. As the old rabbi told me. I told him about the stones. Many people ask the question, what is my stone? I say, whatever your heart desires. That's your stone. As the rabbi told me. I say, Venus influences today in such a way that I say, there is a woman I want. He says it's not Venus that influences, it's physics that influences yours. You've been on duty for 3 months, he says, you've already been sitting. Here. And he says, spit. I spat. He says, how many people have been born now? I say, well, about 10 people. Under one influence in 1 second. And there will be 10 of them. One doctor, another murderer, another judge, the third someone else. He says, do you believe in astrology after that? I say, well, exactly on the factor that everyone was born and judges know. I say, I don't believe it now. So I say, and on the tides, ebbs and moons, well, you can't get anywhere. You are already sitting on the sea and watching the tide, the ebb. Also energetically, let's say, Saturn can influence something else, there on men in its own way, on women in its own way. I'm sorry, women have their periods, men also have their periods, men's periods. Let men not be surprised, as if this is not news. We have a surge of testosterone, when we have, as they say, a lighter can take it at home like this. And flare up firm the fact that it was put incorrectly. In other words, we have our own, as they say, natural disasters occur medically. We talk a lot about spirituality, we talk a lot about spirits, about demons. As if there are psychological factors, it is also necessary to take into account. In general, it is necessary to take into account a lot of things. And you need to know a lot of things. I'm not scolding our boys, sorcerers. Already right now I have it on my websites, he is 17 or 18 years old. I'm Lucifer's son and the like. Listen to it sometimes. We have a freelance consultation, adults gather, it seems to be like that, but you seem to communicate, there is something to talk about. Such status personalities, as it were. And he tells his story about how he grabbed this demon by the scruff of the neck, and how let's shake him against the wall. Shake him. And in general, he burned it with his right hand. And on his right hand, at one time, the most holy archangel put on a glove. I say, but the logic is in one thing. Who are you to destroy the age-old creation that the Creator created? He created it, and he will kill it when he needs it, if he needs it. And then, which archangel? Did Mikhail make you a mitten? I've seen gins there in my time, in my life, let there be a dozen there. I saw an angel without Krylov. Beskrilova? You see, they describe the winged ones there, that's all. I saw without Krylov. And he says, I am an angel. I say, so you're wingless. He says, and you are wingless, and you will become an angel. I mean, you know here. Well, how can I say, Nostradamus, if he predicted flying iron birds at one time, then we don't say an iron bird is flying. We are already talking about an airplane. It's just that for that period of time when the liturgies were written, people did not yet understand some phrases, words, that maybe right now have significance, so to speak. Miracles exist, God naturally exists, angelology, demonology, genology, energy rhythm, voice, vibration technologies. They have changed so much now, we have an evolution in the spiritual world, so much now that even using reliable, such serious schemes for exorcising demons. To influence circumstances, to change a little bit of a circumstance, it no longer works for me. In other words, there has already been some kind of shortage. Let's say this virus has already adapted to this energy. Because it has already been applied. You know, here they are like viruses, they remind me of viruses in some way. Also, once he adapted himself to the external environment, the energy of another person, and lives on with him. Once I went to another which there or to a sorcerer, adapted to his energy, gained even more lives. And the person is oppressed and oppressed. You know, here's a man's faith falling. When a person is psychologically ill, it's like being in a one-room apartment. I have in mine. This is my life, let's say yes at this moment. And if I close up again, that's when people close up, close the curtains, psychologically they have an apathetic state. Self-combustion, that's what they call it.
They have this kind of settlement, right?
The same, yes. Somewhere there's a settlement that does not like light, silence is needed. You don't bathe, don't wash, the water is not good. That is, all ablution, purification, light, smoke, incense, it's all bad, it stinks. That is. And he used to love it.
And a person, does he notice this in himself? How does he understand that something is wrong?
At that moment, he no longer understands. Relatives already understand this. It's already relatives calling there, let's say, and saying there, Kai, accept my son, I'll come with him. But I just don't want you, let's say, to start with me, call him, for example, to talk there. There's something wrong with him. Sometimes they tell me directly what's going on. They say, but we know that you will help. Therefore, he says, we immediately explain to you what we will come to you with. In other words, play along with us, get him out of this situation.
And what do you say directly? Stories, something that tells what is happening to a person.
A person closes down, literally formal, even ordinary stressful situations. That is, what drives a person initially into energy. Minus is all the stressful situations that we have in life. For someone, a splinter, as they say, is sick. For someone there is no elbow, there are no elbows, it hurts. You see, there he says, his problem. Also in humans. A person may just have an ordinary injury. He was sent on the bus and the mood was spoiled. A person is injured for the whole day. What's the matter with you? It's nothing. Well, as he says, I was offended because I was sent there on the bus there. And someone has personal stress. Someone has stress, borrowed money, does not give. A child was stolen from someone. Someone who does not give money was taken away. Someone lost $1 million, sorry, there, and we don't know about it, and someone's wife cheated, and for some formality so stupid. When you talk to them, you think, ugh, it's even disgusting to talk as if to a person, because of what she did it there, let's say. There are many different situations. It's not just that a witch needs to step on her tail, as they say, you know. There are a lot of situations. And there are a lot of wandering spirits who want to get back into this world and are looking for carrier bodies, let's say, too. In other words, they are also looking for such people, they find them, and then they start to. But this is also noticeable later. At first, it is not noticeable, but when they already possess a person, then it is already noticeable. Then his habits change. He doesn't eat this porridge. How can you not eat, son? You've loved this porridge all your life. I said, I don't eat this porridge. That is, and so he talks like this. That is, don't touch me, don't call me. That is, and now he is leaving the world. He leaves the world of friends, he gets another kind of partner, there's someone else. Someone goes into drunkenness, plus everything like that. I will show you how you can protect your home, your child, your husband, for example, there. How to influence the work so that some evil energy does not penetrate. Where to stick an ordinary knife so that a witch, let's say there, or an evil tongue does not pass. What should your husband stick in his pants, let's say, so that someone else's woman does not affect him. He comes, let's say, he comes, yes, and she says, make it so that he only stands on me.
Is that possible?
Of course.
And how is this influence on a person? And this is how you can influence a person, say.
Well, there are already nuances there.
Well, what can you tell us?
Well, it's also subconsciously. Well, this is mysticism. In other words, there is already mysticism here, another energy is already being turned on here. That is, there must be a horse's hair from the mane. That is, she must definitely go herself. Where will I get a horse? I say, I will find it. I say, it will cost you more. I say, you better go yourself. And according to the rule, you have to go yourself. Where will I go? I say, go to any stable, and take a hair from the horse's withers. So I say the hair.
Usually they take a person's hair.
But that's how the ancients decided. Therefore, I only inform you what ingredients are needed.
And how long does this last in total?
Well, as long as the man doesn't notice the catch. And the man notices the catch.
And how is it? What do they notice?
There are sometimes such risk factors when you want to get there, but it doesn't work out. And how does it not work out? It works with my wife, it doesn't work there. Yes, she's prettier, yes she is. Well, in general, there are such force majeure there. You know, I have girls coming here and I'm honestly saying, I'm thinking, my God, well, you should have been taken to this as a plastic surgeon. So I think to myself, I laugh. So I'm going to poke around for now, while this is the most. After 2 or 3 months, she brings me 3 or 4 photos. The person is different. I say, what is it? She says, everyone wants to. This one is rich. This rich man says, but I don't want to make a scandal with my mother-in-law there. But this one, and you are glad and calling me. Here, but there will be Islam right away. What do you recommend? I'm telling you which cage. Thicker gold, thinner. That is, let's say they talk thicker. I say fly to the Emirates. She comes, beautiful. Damn, while you're sitting right next to the roof, it's smoking, as they say, you know, you're thinking there, and she's crying. I can't get married. I can't get out and that's it. 21 years old. But there were reasons in Islam that Muslims walk a lot. They believe that everything should be fine, so that their daughter would marry. I ran into such a moment when they still had a priest dad. And he is a mule and constantly reads, and reads for his daughter. And what does he ask for? He asks, Allah, save my daughter from nerves, from a bad husband, from a thief, from this. And we have only one mountain, all the same, all the same. Allah protects her. She is 25 years old, Allah protects her. And for whom to give? Where would he get one? If you take the same priest, then in principle there, well then yes, there I say, so stop praying for her. Let the person go, let her live normally. As we let go of our child. I say, that's how Allah keeps it under the jar. There are a lot of things to tell, that it is possible to tell, that it is possible to convey to people, so that people understand that. How to say, because of a dozen idiots, please do not lose faith in those who can still do something.
Hi, thank you very much for an interesting conversation.
Please,
Invited to visit.
come back for more portions. A new portion of new news.
Thank you. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us. All the best to you.
Hello. Shadow control is on the air. Every person in his life repeatedly encounters magic and what is inexplicable. And when faced with this, he often forgets, although the consequence remains. And the question is, what is magic? False or true? Magic exists, and it is real. If magic was a fantasy or a deception, it wouldn't have existed for so many thousands of years. And throughout all this time, it has seduced and seduces the masses of people to this day. Magic is the oldest and most numerous religion, the religion of Satan, whose adherents are even atheists. That is why all the prophets at all times said about the inadmissibility of practicing magic, that magic brings down to hell. And yet, some religions, originally built on the true teachings introduced by the prophets, today openly engage in magic, conduct various magical rituals, offerings, sacrifices. But after all, the prophets did not do this and, moreover, bequeathed not to do it. All these actions are imposed by the devil. As well as begging, supposedly God has material goods, health. But the prophets said, it is not worth asking God for anything, except for the salvation of the soul. It turns out that those who had to fight and resist magic openly serve Satan. Why is she so attractive? When people, knowing about the ruinousness, and, nevertheless, exchange forever for a momentary ghostly, material one. Yes, the invisible world exists, and it is diverse, like the ocean is full of unknown life. And together with you, friends, we would like to understand a little bit about what magic really is, why it is so tempting, and how the invisible world really works.